Well, thank you for your generous offering, and be sure to be used in upbuilding of God's kingdom. I don't want to take up too much of Tommy's time. You're going to turn to Philippians chapter 4. We'll talk about a little bit about dieting. What you we eat a lot of different things. Doctor puts us on eating plans that we should be on, and sometimes we don't like what he tells us that we should eat and what we shouldn't eat. And it doesn't sound too good to me giving out sweets this morning, the little ones. So, and to the adults, they kind of get upset with me when I don't give them their Tootsie Rolls. So, but it's a sticky subject that it is about dieting and eating what we should. But if I can read what I wrote this morning in my glasses, then I'll get back to Philippians. So what will we expect of someone who feeds only on fast foods and unhealthy snack foods, filled with sugar and fat, and what will we expect? Will we expect a healthy body, long life? No. Would we expect physical health to be the product of, what would we expect physical health to be? The product of physical intake. So, if we eat a lot of unhealthy foods, grease, fat, that's what pretty much is going to be in it. It's going to be in our bodies. What we put in it, that's what it's going to be. Is it any different in the spirit? Modern culture is saturated with unhealthy spiritual foods. The lust of the flesh and the eyes. Pride of life. TV channels, newspapers, magazines, internet, images. We'll let them win our attention. What we feed on, is this unhealthy? Yes, it is. If we let all this stuff absorb into our life that we read, that we watch, we are what we eat. It applies not only in the physical world, but also in the spiritual world. Consumes the wrong things, we will have the wrong results. There is no way to take in junk without it becoming junky. God wants us to take care of His temple, our bodies, to watch our diets. He pleases Him more when we take care of our minds, our thoughts. Our thought life is where His Spirit prefers to be and to work, to shape. Uncultured hearts and minds. Watch what goes into your minds. His thoughts nourishes you. So if we put good things in our minds and our thoughts, that's what comes out. If we put unclean things in our minds and our thoughts and our hearts, that's what comes out. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8 says, "Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things." So, we died on a lot of different things. But let's put our attention on our spiritual diets. what we put in is what's going to come out. Brother Tom brings a message.
Quiet everybody down. I never did have the nerve to teach unbuttoning. I love that verse though. You know, Paul, I was sitting even this morning before I came to church thinking about it. I'd looked and noticed that Paul was going to bring up the message, and I always enjoy when he does because he can say in a few short words a great message. And I commend him for that. He does a really good job. The 8th chapter, or the 8th verse of 4th Philippians is a favorite verse of mine. That was my grandmother Lacey's favorite verse, and each time it's read, I think of her and those virtues. Today, I want you to go with me to the 8th chapter of Ecclesiastes. We're having a Bible bowl here this afternoon in our evening service. And I encourage you, if you haven't been here, to come and participate. It's a competition of a sort, and there's some that are very competitive in this event. But it's a learning experience, and it's in a different arena that we learn. And so as I was looking through the Word, and I thought, I was studying and reading, and I haven't read any of the questions. Do you remember how many there are? Are there 30 or 50 or too long ago? I have them, but I haven't looked at them. I wanted to study them. There'd be 30. Dan writes the questions, does a very good job, and I'm going to tell you, to go through the book of Ecclesiastes, it's a hard book to look and think what kind of questions, because what happens in this book is he asks a lot of questions. The word ecclesiastic has been, as I looked up, it means teacher or preacher, and virtually most of this book is him asking questions. There's a lot of common sense in here. There's a lot of things that you read it, you need to just kind of ponder on them and think about them, and there's a lot of truth, and he's seeking out questions from each of us. In the 8th chapter, it says, "Who is as the wise man, and who knoweth interpretation of a thing? A man's wisdom maketh his face to shine, and the boldness of his face shall be changed." Wisdom is an antidote to temptations. And we're given the scripture to take care of all the temptations that we have, to all the trials and all the problems that we have. And where do we search for wisdom? In Colossians 2 and 3 it says, "To the acknowledgement of the mystery of God and of the Father and of Christ, in whom are hid all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge." The wisdom and the knowledge that we need to know about our spiritual life and a lot of other parts of our life as well is hidden in the Word. To be able to understand the Word, to be able to analyze it, and sometimes you can't just read the Bible, you have to kind of reference it around to different parts. To be able to interpret that Word and to apply it to the parts of our lives when we need it, or maybe when someone else needs it and we need to give them direction in the same manner. In 2 Peter 1 and 20, we're told that knowing this first, that no prophecy of the Scripture is of any private interpretation. We all have the same opportunity. God hasn't given me any revelation that he hasn't given anyone else. He's given me the Word, and we all have the same opportunity to abide in that. But do we abide? 2 Timothy tells us, I believe it's 2:15, to study, to show ourselves approved unto God. Do we do that? Do we take upon our spiritual diet, as Paul talked about, to abide in the Word, to read it, to digest it, and to use it in our lives daily? I sat and thought here the other day, and it's funny how, it says wisdom will bring a smile to your face. And you ever think about sometimes when you figure something out that you've been working on a long time, and you go, yeah, that's what it is. And the countenance of your face will change. Charles Ray spoke here the other day as he sang that song, Amazing Grace. John Newton in 1779 wrote that song. He was an English poet and a clergyman. And that's kind of dwelled on me, and that's how little things kind of come to me, I guess. I'm a simple person. But I once was blind, but now I see. God has enlightened me about a lot of things. And I once was blind. But I now see my spiritual condition that I was in at that time and that I needed to change it. And it's an ever-changing thing, our plan of salvation. As we grow, we will be able to digest, as Paul says, the meat of the word. And if we're still stuck in that sincere milk, we need to grow out of that. And we need to be studying and learning. His wisdom will put a smile on our face all the time. In verse 2 it says, I counsel thee to keep the king's commandment, and then in the regard of the oath of God, be not hasty to go out of his sight, stand not in an evil thing, for he doeth whatsoever pleaseth him. You know, if we stay in the Word, we're in a safety zone. If we're following what the Word tells us to do, we're in a place where nothing else can get us, if we have the faith to do that. If we stay in His grace, all the promises that He has in this Word, we're locked into those things. Now, Satan will tell you that you're not, and Satan will put doubt in your mind, but he's telling us here that we need to stay in the commandments that God has for us. Because if we're in the light, we're doing the things that He would have us to do. And if we're in the dark, we're failing. And we're bound to an eternity that we don't want to face. You know, people think that they can hide from God, but you cannot. He's everywhere. We're told in Proverbs 8, 32 through 36, it says, Now therefore hearken unto me, O you children, for blessed are they that keep my ways. He's telling us the same thing, that if we stay in the commandments, if we stay in the ways of God, we're blessed. He says, Hear instruction and be wise, and refuse me not. To refuse God is not wise. Blessed is the man that heareth me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the post of my doors. For whosoever findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. If we're studying in this Word, if we're reading in this Word, and we're keeping those commandments, we're going to be in favor with God. He said, But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. They that hate me love death. We're told these things. We know these things. We just need to abide by them and stay in His commandments. Where the word of the king is, there is power. And who shall say unto him, What doest thou? There's power in the word because who wrote that word? I am that I am wrote that word. He has the power to back it. He has the power to know it, to interpret it to us. And if we just have the faith to believe in it as Abraham did, not that we question it, but we just do it. We're told what the word is, and we just do those things we're told. Verse 5, it said, Whoso keepeth the commandments shall feel no evil thing, and a wise man's heart discerneth both time and judgment. Because to every purpose there is a time and judgment. Therefore the misery of a man is great upon him. You see, a wise person will find the time to do the things he says he'll do. A foolish person will sit and tell you, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Maybe knowing that they don't have the time to do those things. Knowing that they're just talking and they're not doing what they're going to do. Because it says in Ecclesiastes 12:14, For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. We all in this room know today that at some point in time we're going to die. Are we sowing to those things of evil, or are we sowing to those things of good? Why would you not get it right today? If you know those things are going to happen, why would you let Satan say, put it off, put it off? If we know it's going to happen, let's be right with God. For he knoweth not that which shall be, for who can tell him when it shall be? When is your end of time? How much time do you have to get ready before God comes back and gets you? I think it would drive us crazy to know that. And I sit sometimes and I read an obituary or hear something and somebody's the same age that I am. And I think, that could have been me. We don't think about people dying of our own age sometimes. But then as we look around in the world, people are dying of our own age all the time. And sometimes people are dying younger ages. It can happen at any time. So we need to be ready. He comes as a thief in the night. Just this week I heard on the news where a young couple was en route to the hospital to have their first child. They were both 21 years old. Somebody T-boned them, killed both of them. The baby was delivered later and lived. Now, I'm sure it wasn't on their agenda when they started that morning, that I'm going to die today and I need to get ready. What was on their mind was that they're going to bring a new life into this world. We don't know when that day is going to come when we get up in the morning, if we get up in the morning. That's why I'm saying, and he's saying here, that we need to make sure that our calling and election is sure, that we need to be prepared. In verse 8 it says, there is no man that hath power over the Spirit to retain the Spirit, neither hath he power in the day of death, and there is no discharge in that war, neither shall wickedness deliver thou that is given to it. I can't prolong my life. Now, I can do some things, and it's funny how this relates to Paul's message here this morning. I can exercise. I can eat better, correctly, and maybe live longer. But when God comes, I can't say, no, I'm going to wait a day, I'm going to wait a week, I'm going to wait a little longer. When he comes for me, that's what's going to happen. Death is appointed to all of us. And I always, it kind of, when I think about that, there's a quote in the Masonic funeral. And it says, the cradle and the coffin stand side by side, and it is a melancholy truth that so soon as we begin to live, that moment we also begin to die. Folks, we're on our way toward death. We may be a quarter way there, we may be halfway, we may be at that mark. We don't know. But we need to be asking ourselves these questions that the preacher is asking in these chapters. Are we ready? Are we doing the things? Are we in the commandments of God? Or are we following mankind rather than his? No matter, it says, how evil you are, that won't prolong your days either. And it won't make you avoid death. No, it won't extend it at all. It said, all this have I seen and applied my heart into every work that is done under the sun, and there is a time wherein one man ruleth over another to his own hurt. Men are wicked. In some ways, it says, in this earth they're going to have power over other people. And we know that people hurt other people. Those in power sometimes are good and sometimes they're not, as they rule over individuals. When we go into these last verses here, as I've studied and looked up some different references, it talks about these are inequalities in these scriptures. And the first one says in 10, and so I saw the wicked buried, who had come and gone from place to the holy, and they were forgotten in the city where they had so done. That is also vanity. What he's talking about here is that wicked people live in a community. Wicked people do wicked things. And when they die, people praise them. Oh, they were a good person. They done good things. Even in the city, it says that where they done those things, those deeds. And you know, that's a thing, and it's funny, but that's just the way it is. That when somebody dies, usually they're better than they were when they lived. He's saying this is vanity. It's false. It's dangerous to non-believers to hear about someone that did wicked deeds, and when they die, all of a sudden they're good. I never will forget a person I was friends with when I was in college. Somebody died, and everybody was praising and talking about how good they were. And he said, I didn't like that fellow when he's alive. And he said, now that he's dead, I don't like him any better. Kind of cruel, but it's the truth. There was wisdom in what he said, in that, just because you die doesn't make you any better. But in this world, sometimes we look at it differently. It also goes on and says, because the sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Just as long as I can get away with it, nobody's punishing me, that's what I should do. According to that, that's how it happens. Because God doesn't always punish us immediately, it lets people think, well, I'm getting away with this. And you get more bold in things that you do that are against God. Some people think at that point it's safe to sin, that nothing's ever going to happen. Peter wrote about it in 2 Peter 3 and 4 in the scoffers. And there's people in the world today have this opinion. They said, and saying, where is the promise of coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. God's never come back. Why should I fear that he's going to come back? Is their attitude. But if you go down into verse 10 of the same chapter, and it says, But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat, the earth also, and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Those people en route to having that child didn't think the world was going to come to an end for them on that day. But as a thief, it came and it took them. Though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear God, which fear before him. I sat and think in the day how many times I probably sinned. And you all know your lives and your hearts better than I do. But each time that I do that, I ask God to forgive me, and he does. Do you fear God, or are you like the scoffers? No, I don't have to ask God to forgive me because I don't think it's ever going to come to an end. This world's never going to come to an end. What I do here is minute, and it really doesn't matter. It's what that thought pattern is. Do you think, if you're here today and you're not a Christian, that you're really getting away with it? Or if you are a Christian and you're saying, well, I can sin because I'll be forgiven. Which is not the way you look at it. We're to keep God's commandments and serve him while we're here. Thinking about the short time that we have on this duration of this earth without God or with him versus having with him or without him in eternity. Lazarus, the rich man, he knew, but it was too late, that he should have done something. We know in this life, you've heard the word here today. Will you get to that point and say, boy, I wish I had have done something back then? The Bible tells us that today is the day of salvation. Verse 13 says, But it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feareth not for the Lord. In this life, it's heaven for those that are sinners that never want to accept God and the power of him. This is as good as it's going to get because you're in this false hope of security because you make a conscious decision not to obey God. There is no hope. There is no salvation once we pass away. You know, their time just passes away freely. They're happy and they go along, and it says that they pass as shadows. And I sit and thought about shadows, and I don't know if you've ever sat and watched shadows and how the sun moves around things. And shadows are here and then they're gone. This is the lives of those that are wicked. I sat and watched the other day. I looked in my yard and there was one beam of frost all the way across my yard. And I thought, what is that? There was a power pole there. And where the sun couldn't hit, there was frost. But eventually the sun came around that pole and the frost was gone. Just as the shadows will be gone, just as the days of our life will be gone. If we're not following God, we're going to let these things come and pass, and it's going to be too late. It'll be over. Suddenly it's gone. Those shadows are just as our life will be here on earth. It said, There is a vanity which is done upon the earth, that there be just men, upon whom it happen according to the work of the wicked. Again, there be wicked men to whom it happen according to the work of the righteous. I said, this is also vanity. In this world, I see people that are good people that I think are good Christians that are striving and trying to do hard, and they are portrayed by others as wicked people. Oh, they're trying to do something for themselves. And in the same time, I see people that are wicked, and I know they do things, but yet people praise them for their works and the things that they do. There's a lot of common sense in what the preacher says in all of these 12 chapters. But it's the thoughts of these men, it's the inside that matters to God, and he discerns that. And he will separate someday those that are of the wheat and those that are of the tares. But we look at it here on this earth. Verse 15 says, Then I commended mirth, because a man hath no better thing under the sun, that he eat and to drink and to be merry, for they shall abide with him of his labor the days of his life, which God giveth unto him. It's funny how Paul's message and mine parallels here this morning. This congregation has gotten down eating and drinking and being merry. We're good at that. But you know, we're told here to do that. We built a fellowship hall out there. And there's been a lot of occasions of weddings and birthdays and different things that are celebrated. And we come together and we eat and we share and we fellowship one another. And we bear that happiness that's happening to that day. And there's days that we've been out there for funerals. And we've eaten and we've drank. And there's been merriment. And we bear the sadness of those of that day. And he's saying here that eating and drinking and being merry is a good thing to do. That we're fellowshipping with either condition. We're fellowshipping with one another, and we're helping and we're bearing. To get married and no one else come to your wedding that day would not be very happy. To pass away and nobody come to your funeral, to share it with somebody would not be good either. So through these things, we help each other through life. Verse 16 says, When I applied mine heart to know wisdom, and to see the business that is done upon the earth, for also there is that neither day nor night seeth sleep with his eyes. Look around you and you see all the vanity in the world, and it goes on day by day. Now, it's nighttime somewhere else in the world, and it's daytime here. In a few hours, it'll be nighttime here, and it'll be daytime there. We can't take it all in. Now, there's technology today that can probably film all of that stuff. But they can't take it in, but God does. God sees the things that goes on every day. It's not possible for us, but it is possible for him. And not only is he seeing it, he's hearing it, and he's recording it to be used later. It says, Then I beheld all the work of God, that a man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. Because though a man labor to seek it out, yet he shall not find it. Yea, further, though a wise man think to know it all, yet shall he not be able to find it. We cannot know everything that goes on. And I think it astounds people sometimes when people that study the Bible and they ask them a question, they go, I don't know the answer to that. And they go, well, you're a minister, you should know. I can't know it all. I can go back to the Word and refresh my memory. But the preacher here tells us that it's impossible for us to know it all. But that doesn't mean that he never quit searching out the answers to the things in his lifetime. Searching out the things that pleases God. There is a lot of vanity in this world, but there are things that please God. You know, God doesn't need us, but he wants us and he loves us, and he wants us to be obeying to him. In the 9th chapter of Ecclesiastes, the 10th verse, it says, Whatsoever thy hand find to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, no device, no knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. See, we have this little short time span to get these things done. Because there'll come a time when we're in the grave, we can't change what we've done in this life. We won't know, it says. There'll be no wisdom, there'll be no knowledge. While we're here and alive today is when we need to do it. He finishes up this book in the 13th verse of the 12th chapter. There's actually 14 verses. But he says to fear God and keep his commandment, for this is the whole duty of man. So as we talked this morning about being zealous, being real Christians, being fervent, being diligent, are we doing what God has for us to do as the whole duty? Are we searching out his commandments? Are we searching out and doing the things that he would have us to do, showing love to others? If you're here today and you're thinking, you know, I'm not started on that road, but I'll put that off for a week or so. I hope you don't end up like a little couple that started to have a baby. Today is the day of salvation. You're here today in a place where people love you, people will pray for you, and people will help you to start on that road. As we all sing, look at the verses in this song, number 592, Oh Happy Day. That's what we have as a Christian, as we sing. All stand.